Welcome everyone to a new episode of Science Factory. On my first day in London, I visited the Egypt Exploration Society, and without planning it, I got a great tour from Dr. Edward Scrivens, their development manager.
Hello, hi, come on in. Hello, welcome to the Egypt Exploration Society.
Well, hello, I'm in the EES, the Egypt Exploration Society, and I'm here with...
Hi, I'm Dr. Edward Scrivens. I'm the development manager here at the EES, but my own background as an Egyptologist is in things to do with gender in ancient Egypt. So my personal research has been on goddesses and how their roles are represented in Ramesside material. And here at the EES, I've also done some work on feminine power in ancient Egypt, so teaching courses and writing for our publications about that. So this is the, part of the heart of everything. So the EES has been on this site since 1968, I believe. We've existed since 1882, but we've been here since the late 60s when we bought these premises here on Doughty Mews. And this is part of the very glamorous administrative nerve centre of the society. Oh, and coming down here is our engagement manager, Charlotte Jordan.
Lovely to meet you. Lovely to meet you too.
All right. And so, yeah, here is where everything from dealing with members and memberships, organising events, and facilitating visiting researchers, everything sort of happens in this kind of nerve centre up here. Also, we have an office upstairs, and and a couple of different office spaces for our director and our HR people and things like that. But sort of coming off from here, we have, I guess you start to go into the more research-related spaces. So down through that door is where we have some of our archival materials currently, and some of our archival materials displayed here in this case. So this is a display that I've curated using some of our archival materials. So here at the EES, we have archival collections that document British archaeology in Egypt going back to 1882 when we were founded. And as part of a project going towards of our premises, where we'll hopefully have much bigger and more developed display spaces, we wanted to experiment a bit with foregrounding these archival collections. So I, having my background in women and female power in ancient Egypt, wanted to focus in on Hatshepsut and Nefertiti, so these two towering female rulers of Egyptian history, because the EES has excavated at both Deir el-Bahari, where Hatshepsut's memorial temple is, and at Amarna, so the site, the new capital that was built by Akhenaten and Nefertiti during their whole reformation, whatever one wants to call it. And so focused in on that really, highlighting objects such as these replicas. So these are historic replicas. I say that because they're from the 1930s. So these are reproducing objects that were found on the EES excavations at Amarna. So this replica here is of an unfinished bust of Queen Nefertiti. So this is one of the objects discovered at Amarna. The original is in the Egyptian Museum in Cairo. So the EES discovered this in what came to be known as the Waddington Workshop. So this was a sculptor's workshop. And the original object, as you can see, it sort of has all these guidelines on it. So it was unfinished. It was meant to be part of a larger composite statue. And when it was discovered, as I say, the original stayed in Egypt, but this replica was made in the 1930s, along with this replica of an alabaster vase, also discovered at Amarna. And that's kind of an interesting one because it was discovered at Amarna, but the inscription on it names Hatshepsut, the female king, whose reign was some 100 or so. Yeah. And actually where they've also, in the name of Hatshepsut here, where they've scratched out the name of Amun. So that's a kind of Atenist erasure, which then begs the question, why is this object here at Amarna? This object pertaining to Hatshepsut. And what I sort of suggested as one interpretation here is that this perhaps is almost an heirloom of the reign, especially if we have a setup here at Amarna where you have a very powerful female ruler in the form of Nefertiti. I could entirely see why you might want to harken back to that powerful female ruler in the person of Hatshepsut. And that particularly becomes important, I think, if you go down the interpretation that Nefertiti herself, perhaps albeit briefly, became a king in her own right, like with these sort of very short reigns towards the end of the Amarna period, where you get this ruler that we know to be a female king called Neferuaten, which just so happens to be Nefertiti's own throne name. So, you know, seems likely to me that this was Nefertiti. And so these sort of formed part of the core basis of putting the display together, I suppose. And then kind of radiating out from that came, okay, what other stories can we tell? What can we draw in? What archival materials can we foreground? So that includes things like reproductions of watercolors that were made of fragments at Deir el-Bahari. So that is a reproduction of a watercolor that records a fragment from the Punt scenes in Hatshepsut's memorial temple. And we also have some object cards of, so for instance, over here, this is reproducing an object card from the bust when it was discovered. And, oh yes, hello. And reproductions of some of our records of small finds, such as these plaques that record Hatshepsut's name and titles. I know they're great. And I've suggested here that they could be reflecting different points in Hatshepsut's reign, because one of them, the square plaque, is using the title of God's wife, a very important priestly title that came to be used by royal women. And that tends to be what she was using when she was a queen and when she was of a regent rather than a co-ruler. And then you get the plaque beneath that that's cartouche-shaped, which is using her throne name of Mat-Kara. So just using all these different materials to try and tell those stories about these women and the different ways that they expressed and exercised their power, and also how they were erased, and how we, using not just archaeology but archives, can draw those stories out. But this is, of course, an extremely limited space, right? And so that begs all sorts of questions then about which are the narratives that you put in. So here I mentioned when I was just talking about how Nefertiti may have been a king for a short period. There wasn't space for that here. Also in talking about the impressive achievements of these women and these individuals, that can kind of come across as being very lauded, very kind of adulating, but you know, we now know through archaeological work at Amarna that the construction of the site probably relied quite a lot on child labour. And so how do you bring that in? Does that nuance things? And this does not have room for that sort of nuance. So part of the hope of this is to experiment with that and how we foreground these stories in our collections. Then in the hope that with this much bigger expanded display space, we'll be able to go into that in more detail in a more innovative, flexible way, be able to bring in new kinds of people maybe to come and interpret things and put stuff on display that has never been on display before. And always there are new things to find in archives, so you know, we will see what ends up getting put up. We also have archive stores upstairs, and traditionally speaking, also in the upstairs of the next door building, which is the library, but some of those have been moved due to structural works, but that is also part of our archive store. And I can take you through to the library now, actually. So mind the step. So through here, this is the EES's library, and it's one of the largest publicly accessible research libraries for Egyptology in the UK. It's members get to just come and use this for free, but you can buy a very cheap, I believe, day pass. I think it's about £5, something like that. If you're not a member, you can come and work in here. And we get lots of researchers, students, just interested members of the public as well, who come to use our resources. I want to say we may be looking at 20,000 plus kind of objects of Egyptological literature. But this was all actually the home once upon a time of this man here. So this is Ricardo Caminos. And Ricardo Caminos was an Argentinian-American Egyptologist, particularly active as an epigrapher. In fact, over here you can see a picture of him on a ladder while he's doing one of his drawings. That's actually not the tallest ladder I've seen a picture of him on. I've seen him on a truly terrifyingly high kind of taped together bunch of ladders before. And he did a lot of work with us, with the Egypt Exploration Society out in Egypt, worked on a lot of our projects, and he was a professor over at Brown, and when he retired, he decided he wanted to move here. So this wasn't part of the EES at that point, and so he moved next door to the Society and put in a lot of what you see around us. So a lot of these shelves were his original shelves that he put in, because he essentially wanted to create a library that he could live in. And he had 2 small bedrooms upstairs. Well, no, a small bedroom and kitchen and bathroom, and then had all down here his novels, apparently shelves that were deep enough to also have a bottle of wine behind the novels. Yeah. And yes, it is. And upstairs would be doing his epigraphy work. And so we have here, as I say, lots of different volumes of Egyptological literature and current ongoing literature. So we keep everything sort of very up to date. And it's also just a lovely kind of place to exist here in Bloomsbury, in the middle of London. Like, you wouldn't really think about it. It's very peaceful and quiet here. But it's all change. It is all change because we are working towards a redevelopment of our premises, because you may have noticed I told you to mind the step. This is a very inaccessible building, unfortunately. So all our collections and things are upstairs, and as are our bathrooms and, well, bathroom. And it's not accessible to the public or to researchers, and we also want to ensure that we are looking after our important archival collections. So we are looking to redevelop the place, put in new collection storage facilities, display facilities, and so a lot of this will be changing. However, we do want to keep some of the different touches and pieces of history, because through this process we've realised that as much as the heritage that we look after is to do with Egypt and Egyptology, it's also the stories of the people who've worked in this building, like Ricardo, and we want to kind of keep that within what we're doing. So that is the goal and the plan.
Okay. And how is your daily life here?
Our daily life, it's very varied. It can be everything from just a very mundane spreadsheets and emails through to, as I say, all the researchers coming and using our collections with all their really interesting different areas of work, finding things within our archives that we weren't even sure were there or that are new to us. We will see, for instance, today we had a visit from the incoming British ambassador to Egypt, which is very exciting, and so sometimes we see folks like that. And we'll have courses in here, events. So it's actually very varied. And because it's, the EES, I think, is a very core, central and influential organisation for Egyptology, but in terms of the physical space here in London, there's a small team of us running it, basically. So it is an all hands on deck kind of approach. So we all have our different areas of work, but also you get to chip in, and that means that, if something needs dealing with, you all jump in, but also it means that, I, as the development manager, spend a lot of my time thinking about this redevelopment and our future projects, but it also means that I contribute to our teaching program, and I contribute to publications that we're putting together. And I just get to have my hand in different things and be doing different stuff that you might not otherwise if you're part of like a larger institution. And so that's, you know, it's fun. It comes with its challenges because it means that you then, as I say, it's all hands on deck, but it also means that you know, it's never the same and it's never boring. And so that's
it sounds like very dynamic, right?
It is very dynamic, absolutely.
And you get to know a lot of people from
You
all
do?
over the world.
Yeah, because people come here specifically to use our archives, and also sometimes people who are here to, I don't know, do stuff in the British Museum or the Petrie or various things will stop off here to use the library or to look through the archive or just to say hi. So it's a really cool way of being almost what feels like being kind of a crossroads of like the Egyptological world. So people sort of come through here, and that's really cool because it means then you get to meet movers and shakers in the field, or people who are coming up and you know, are just starting out, and that's really cool and exciting. But also that we'll get, you know, kids and their parents knocking on the door just being like, what's this? Yeah. And then you get to talk to them about it and hopefully sort of get people excited. So we, for instance, do some local events. We, a couple of weeks back, did a kind of summer fair event just a few streets over, where we had people building little pyramids out of blocks, like kids doing that and colouring in and dressing up and things. We did a Christmas fair event where I got to, do you know the comedian Diane Morgan who does Philomena Kunk? So like I got to mummify her like in character as Philomena Kunk, which was so much fun. Yeah, and so sometimes you'll just get to do things like that. So it's really exciting how you can sort of be part of the very academic and get the post. Oh, actually, I think this is one of our trustees. It feels like surprising things happen all the time. Some of the strangest things in the greatest love come sometimes from members of the public who aren't particularly informed but are extremely enthusiastic. And the enthusiasm is what we love, but sometimes it leads to some odd situations. So I just heard like this knock at the door, and I opened it, and this guy just comes in and basically just said like, I want to dig in Egypt. Like, how do I do that? And just he'd never, no archaeological thing at all, and it was pretty much, I think, was wondering if we were sort of the connector directory service to be like, oh yes, come in and we'll put you on a dig. And that's not what we are, just so people know. And so we said, oh well, you tend to have to be associated with a project and there are checks. And so then I think the reality of it sort of maybe dampened that enthusiasm slightly. But he came in very enthusiastic, being like, I'm here to dig. And I'm like, I'm not sure you are. And the alien questions, and you know, that unfortunately does happen. But the sort of, I guess, encouraging thing about that is that recently when we were at the summer fair event, and I was getting my face painted to have like, you know, eye makeup, Egyptian eye makeup, and I was dressed up as well. I was like, why not? Let's just dress up and do the whole thing. Someone came over because we had shirts that say, ask me about Egyptology on the back. And someone came over and said, so, since you're wearing the shirt, what about these cities they're apparently finding under the pyramids with like the radar scanning? And so then we told him, oh, well, actually, no, that's not the case really. Our understanding is that that technology doesn't really go through rock in that way. And especially when you're using AI things, it's not as if it's trained on a whole bank of information, so it's just kind of creating noise out of what it could see, and then sort of took that on board because he just wanted to know. And so sometimes these slightly off the wall things that happen, the trick, I guess, is to not be too thrown by them and to not necessarily think of them as like a lost cause, because sometimes these are the opportunities for connecting to people. And so things like that, I think, are actually, while they can catch you off guard, they could be some of the cool ways to actually get the message across to people.
Absolutely. It's kind of tricky to be up to date with all this fake news because there are so many.
It is all the time. And I think sometimes we put the pressure on ourselves as people in the field that I have to know this stuff so that I can give the right answer, or that I can sort of head it off or do the right thing and prove that this is right. And then you freeze a bit and you're like, oh, but do I know it? I'm not sure. And I wonder whether sometimes, as well as trying to keep updated as much as we can, I think it's as much about showing a way of thinking more than it is about stuff and information that you have. So showing people or inviting people maybe just to say, oh, like I've heard this thing, and that there's this, let's say, giant spaceship underneath one of the pyramids, and then kind of like, okay, cool. Where did you hear that? What makes you think that? What was the evidence that was cited? And that sometimes I think almost a comforting thing for me is that, like, in terms of being an Egyptologist or a scholar or an archaeologist or whatever, it's that ology bit that it's a form of knowledge. It's a practice, I guess, a tool. And so you don't necessarily have to be scared about knowing the right thing all the time, because what we do have is the thought process, and what we're like trying to maybe get across is to think of things in this way and to question things and approach things in this way, and sometimes that's enough, I think.
I have to learn that.
I say this, next time it happens I'll be like, I don't know, but you know, in an ideal world maybe.
Well, thank you very much. I'm going to leave you to do your work, and I hope to see you very soon.
Great, thank you so much. It's been really great chatting with you. Thank you. And yeah, and hope that you had a nice time in our kooky little building.
Thank you very much.
Unfortunately, we had some issues with the recording of the last video clip, so we had to get a bit creative to fix it. Next week, we'll be back with the second episode of our London trip, where we talk to Dr. Carl Graves, Director of the Egypt Exploration Society. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share Science Factory. See you soon!